Through the airport, the tension began to ease. "I'm truly sorry," he said again. "That officer had no right to treat you like that." "I appreciate it, Martin," Octavia replied. "But honestly, this isn't new. Usually it's subtle. Today it wasn't." They arrived at a private airline lounge. Martin swiped a card to let them in. The noise of the terminal melted away, replaced with soft lighting, plush chairs, and an air of calm. He led her to a quiet conference room with a view of the runway. "Can I get you something?" he offered. "I'm okay," Octavia said. "I just need a moment." She sat, trying to decompress. The anger still simmered, but she knew anger wasn't enough. Change required action. Martin cleared his throat. "If you want to file a complaint, our station manager can help. And honestly, we encourage it. What happened was unacceptable." Octavia nodded slowly. "Yes, I want to escalate this, but not just as a complaint. I've dealt with this kind of prejudice my whole life. It's part of why I invested in Delta in the first place, to drive real change." She exhaled deeply. "I'll be speaking with TSA leadership, Homeland Security, and my legal team. This isn't just about me. It's about the system." Martin looked at her with admiration. "We'll support you however we can." For a while they sat in silence. Octavia stared out at the planes on the tarmac, thinking about how far she'd come and how much further there was to go. After a few minutes, she stood. "Thanks, Martin. I need to make a quick call before boarding." "Of course," he said. "Your flight board's in 90 minutes. Take your time." He stepped out, leaving her alone in the quiet lounge. Octavia pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts. She tapped on one. The voice on the other end answered instantly, warm and familiar. "Hey, cousin." "Hey, Tasha," Octavia said, her tone soft but steady. And just like that, the next chapter of her day began. Tasha Chandler wasn't just Octavia's cousin. She was also a powerhouse civil rights attorney known for her relentless commitment to justice. Her legal journey had in part been fueled by Octavia's own work in philanthropy and equity. "Everything okay?" Tasha asked, instantly picking up on the tension in Octavia's voice. Octavia exhaled slowly. "I was held up at TSA, harassed. The officer questioned my credentials and tore through my documents in front of everyone. It felt like racial profiling, plain and simple." "Are you all right?" "Where are you now? I'm fine physically," Octavia replied. "But I want to take this further. The airline had to step in to get me through security. It was humiliating." Tasha sighed. "I wish I could say I'm shocked, but it's 2025, and this nonsense still happens." "All right, what's the move? Formal complaint, lawsuit?" "Let's start with a complaint," Octavia said. "Loop in Delta's legal team. I'm not trying to ruin this officer's life, but there has to be accountability. And honestly, I'm thinking bigger. Policy changes, better training, something that actually moves the needle." Tasha's tone softened. "That's what I love about you, cuz. Always looking at the bigger picture. Send me everything. I'm on it." After they ended the call, Octavia sent a few messages to key people in Delta's leadership. Within minutes, replies flooded in. They wanted to meet, discuss next steps, and were even open to issuing a formal public statement if it came to that. She left the private lounge room to meet Martin again and finalize the boarding process, unaware that the fallout from this morning's confrontation was far from over. The ripple effect had just begun. Back at the security checkpoint, Bradley Foster carried on as if nothing had happened. He scanned tickets, gave instructions, and barked orders with the same hardened demeanor. But beneath the surface, doubt had begun to creep in. A small, nagging fear that maybe, just maybe, he'd pushed too far. Maybe that woman wasn't bluffing. Still, his pride dug in. He told himself he had followed protocol, that she was the one making a scene, Meanwhile, Jasmine Perez had discreetly filled in Michael Thompson on what Delta's supervisor had said. "She's actually a major investor in Delta," she whispered. Michael raised his brows. "Seriously?" "If that's true, Brad really messed up." "I just hope we're not caught in the crossfire," Jasmine murmured. "We didn't stop him. We just let it happen." Michael gave her shoulder a light squeeze. "You tried. And if it comes down to it, I'll speak up. He's been testing boundaries for a while now." Jasmine nodded, though unease lingered in her chest. Airports were tight-knit ecosystems. News spread fast, and the situation was quickly gaining attention. Sure enough, just over an hour later, Bradley's supervisor arrived. Paula Henderson, a seasoned TSA veteran in her 50s, was known for her no-nonsense demeanor and sharp sense of order. A call from Delta's station manager had expedited her rounds that morning. "Officer Foster," she said firmly as she approached. Bradley straightened. "Making calls, all right, because right now, the system says you don't exist on any flight, let alone Delta's." He stepped back, arms crossed again. "So unless you've got something else to prove otherwise, we might have a situation here." Bradley's words, attempted fraud, hung in the air, turning the already tense situation into something far more serious. It was no longer just an inconvenience. It now carried the weight of legal accusation. From the doorway, Officer Jasmine Perez appeared, her face etched with concern. She had overheard enough. "Brad, can I talk to you for a sec?" she asked quietly. With an irritated grunt, Bradley stepped out, leaving Octavia alone with her open bag and the documents still exposed. In the narrow hallway, Jasmine lowered her voice. "I checked her info earlier. It all lined up. Her ID, the boarding pass, everything. Maybe it's a system error or just a typo. Let me double-check." Bradley's jaw tightened. "Jazz, the system didn't recognize her. And now she's throwing around claims that she's some big investor. Doesn't that strike you as suspicious? I'm not ignoring the possibility of a red flag," Jasmine replied carefully. "But we can't treat her like a criminal just because your gut says so. Let me run a proper check. That's protocol, too." He hesitated, clearly annoyed, then gave a stiff nod. "Fine. But she's not going anywhere until I confirm everything." As Jasmine left to find another terminal, Octavia sat silently in the cramped screening room. Her heart pounded, but her expression remained composed. She was no stranger to these moments, situations where minor issues spiral due to bias, where calm must mask fury. This was the very kind of situation she had hoped to change with her investments and advocacy work. Now she was living it firsthand. Bradley re-entered and resumed rifling through her belongings, more focused on reasserting control than uncovering anything meaningful. "Where'd you get this laptop? When's the last time you left the country?" he asked, firing off questions like bullets, some repeated as if to trip her up. Octavia answered each one steadily, refusing to be rattled. After several minutes, Jasmine returned, her expression resolute. "I spoke with Delta's gate team. There's a system error on their end, a sync issue. Miss Reynolds is booked in first class on Flight 482. She's also a frequent flyer." Bradley's reaction was subtle but noticeable. Surprise, followed by resistance. "Then it's Delta's fault," he grumbled. "Still doesn't explain these so-called investment documents. You don't see that kind of paperwork every day. We need to vet this further." Jasmine's patience was wearing thin. "Delta confirmed she's a valued customer. Let's finish the screening and let her go." But Bradley wasn't ready to let go. "Those documents suggest she owns part of the airline. What if it's a scam? We need more time. National security," he added, wielding the phrase like a shield. Octavia resisted the urge to laugh. "National security? Really?" She kept her tone firm. "Officer, I understand your duty. But unless you have grounds to detain me, I need to call my lawyer. I have a critical business meeting in Los Angeles." Bradley's face flushed. "Don't threaten me with lawyers. I'm just doing my job." Just then, a knock at the door. Another TSA agent, Michael Thompson, leaned in. "Brad, there's a Delta supervisor asking for Miss Reynolds." "Want me to bring him in?" Bradley scowled. "Fine, bring him." Within moments, a tall man in a sleek Delta uniform entered. His name tag read Martin Palmer. He looked directly at Octavia with genuine apology. "Miss Reynolds, I sincerely apologize. We had a system glitch that blocked some passenger data from syncing with TSA. I came as soon as we identified the problem." Bradley's annoyance deepened as Martin turned to him. "I've got full documentation confirming her reservation," Martin said firmly. "And for the record, Miss Reynolds is very important to our airline." Bradley gestured toward the documents. "These papers are still suspicious. Claims of ownership stakes in Delta? Come on." Martin glanced at the folder. "They're confidential, but they check out. I can vouch for her." Bradley bristled, but Jasmine stepped in, gently placing a hand on his arm. "The airline has confirmed everything. Let her through, Brad. We can sort the paperwork later." Grinding his teeth, Bradley relented. "Fine, but if this turns out to be fraudulent, I'll personally see to it she's charged." Octavia calmly gathered her belongings, not dignifying his last remark with a response. Martin offered to walk her to the gate, but Bradley still had to get in one final jab. "Next time, bring a physical boarding pass. Saves everyone a lot of trouble." Octavia held her head high and walked away in silence. She could feel eyes still watching, but her mind was already racing ahead. This wouldn't end here, not quietly. Bradley had no idea who he'd just tried to humiliate, but he was about to find out. As Martin guided her, with the phone, and the QR code was genuine. Still, Jasmine noticed that all too familiar gleam in Bradley's eyes, a bias she had witnessed before. Though frustration tightened in her chest, she remained silent. Challenging him would only stir conflict, risking her own standing. Meanwhile, Octavia kept her composure. She refused to let irritation crack her cool exterior. Still, a familiar unease pressed in. It was that quiet weight, the kind you carry when you've experienced enough bias to recognize its shape. And sadly, the ordeal was far from over. What lay ahead would spiral into something far bigger than either of them imagined, shining a light not only on the cracks in airport procedure, but also on the powerful role Octavia had played behind the curtain, reshaping opportunities for underserved communities. A day that began, like countless others, was about to become a catalyst for reckoning. As she stood aside, her posture still composed, Bradley pulled out a handheld scanner, a compact device connected to TSA's internal systems. He fumbled with it longer than necessary, repeatedly looking between her and the screen, as if chasing a problem that didn't exist. Around them, the terminal carried on. A crying child clung to her mother. Teen athletes laughed about an upcoming tournament. An elderly couple asked for help, their southern drawls barely audible over the ambient noise. Then Bradley's voice sliced through the chaos. "The system's not finding your boarding pass under this name," he announced, loud enough to draw attention. Octavia stiffened. That couldn't be right. She had just been cleared moments earlier. Her app was current. The booking was intact. Her mind raced to make sense of it. "Officer, your colleague confirmed it a few minutes ago," she said, gesturing toward Jasmine, who now looked visibly uneasy. "I'm not sure why it would suddenly disappear." Bradley didn't blink. His expression shifted toward smugness, like he sensed an opening. "Well, Miss Reynolds, it says here no flight under that name. Are you sure you have the correct details?" His words dripped with mock politeness. the insinuation clear. Eyes began to turn. Some passengers glanced over out of interest, others because of the raised tone. A few recognized the uncomfortable optics, an officer turning up the pressure on a composed black woman with no visible wrongdoing. Octavia inhaled deeply. Yes, I'm certain. I booked through Delta. If there's an issue in the system, it's likely a glitch. She met his eyes with unwavering calm. Please verify it promptly. My flight leaves in 2 hours. Bradley folded his arms theatrically. We'll have to do this manually. For now, step into the private screening room. We'll need to inspect your items and confirm your identity. Standard procedure. The last phrase was thick with sarcasm. He motioned toward a small, unwelcoming room beside the checkpoint. Harsh lights flickered inside, casting a sterile gloom. Octavia hesitated, weighing her options. Part of her wanted to pull rank, call her contact at Delta, and end this instantly. But another part, the one weary of always having to prove herself, chose a different path. She would comply. Let him walk straight into the truth. And maybe, just maybe, expose something deeper in the process. Fine. Let's get this sorted, she said evenly. The walk into the room was long, despite the short distance, with eyes trailing them as they moved. Inside, Octavia placed her carry-on on a metal table. Bradley, now gloved, unzipped it and began rifling through its contents. Neatly packed clothing, electronics, a toiletry pouch. Then came the manila folder. He pulled it free and flipped through it, brow furrowing. The folder contained pages marked with her financial stakes. Delta board letters, capital reports, investment breakdowns. Her name appeared again and again, embossed in key places. Bradley blinked. He wasn't sure what he was holding, but it looked important. Got some pretty official stuff here, he muttered, confused but unwilling to admit it. The documents referenced Delta's leadership, large investments, Octavia's role as a principal investor. Still, he wasn't ready to fold. You want to tell me what these are, Miss Reynolds? Internally, Octavia sighed. She hadn't planned to show this to a TSO agent. It was private. But the moment for subtlety had passed. They outlined my investment partnerships. I'm a significant stakeholder with Delta and other companies. These are internal records for my own use. I'm en route to a business meeting in Los Angeles. Her tone was calm, deliberate. Bradley arched a brow, still unconvinced. A major stakeholder? You're telling me you have ownership in Delta? He said it like it was a punchline. I see forged papers all the time. People try all kinds of scams. Octavia didn't flinch. They're authentic, and if you want to verify them, call the airline, or have your supervisor do it. Bradley gave a low chuckle, more irritation than amusement. Oh, we'll be. She came to fly quietly, but ended up making waves. A TSA agent picked the wrong woman to profile. She wasn't just flying Delta, she owned part of it. They say the true weight of influence reveals itself only when it's challenged. What unfolded at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport was nothing short of extraordinary. On this particular day, a loud, small-minded security officer tried to act as judge and executioner, based purely on appearance. But the woman he targeted wasn't just any flyer. She was the quiet architect of power inside one of the globe's top airlines. The events that followed were an electrifying mix of justice, twists, and unexpected alliances that shook both lives to the core. The terminal buzzed with controlled chaos that morning. Professionals rushed past with wheeled bags, eyes glued to time. Families juggled luggage and excitement, forming a collage of cultures beneath harsh overhead lighting. Hallways stretched endlessly, pulsing with movement. Flight calls echoed above, forming the rhythm of transit life. Lines swelled near cafes, people clutching cash or swiping apps. Children's laughter mixed with silent goodbyes. Amid it all stood Octavia Reynolds, poised, elegant, composed. Her jet-black jumpsuit, subtle pearls, and classic watch hinted at refinement. She moved with quiet confidence, her deep bronze skin glowing under artificial light. Her shoulder-length curls framed her thoughtful expression behind stylish readers. Most assumed she was someone important, maybe legal, academic, or corporate. None knew she was a major shareholder in Delta Airlines. Preferring anonymity, she avoided cameras and public platforms, allowing her influence to grow behind closed doors. Despite living in Atlanta, she rarely departed from this airport. Today was different. Octavia had a flight to LA to finalize a project supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs. This initiative, paired with airline programs, could uplift thousands, all silently executed under her guidance. Inside her modest carry-on were confidential papers, proof of her holdings seen only by a select few. She triple-checked every detail before heading out, unaware of the disruption waiting ahead. Just yards away, Officer Bradley Foster stood watching. Barrel-chested, bald and brooding, he had a gaze that made travelers uneasy. He wore the standard uniform with an aura of command. Bradley claimed he could assess character instantly. In truth, his assessments were riddled with stereotypes and entitlement. Colleagues Jasmine Perez and Michael Thompson were used to his antics. Eye rolls were common behind his back, but few challenged him. Their team oversaw checkpoint operations, and Bradley considered himself the main act. Day after day, he randomly flagged people based on instinct shaped more by bias than reason. Men in dashikis, women in hijabs, Latinx teens, and black passengers often bore the brunt. He interrogated destinations, dug through belongings with dubious justification. Occasionally, someone voiced concern, but complaints never stuck. He hid behind phrases like, "just protocol," or "routine check," always careful to toe the line. Today seemed no different. He'd already pulled aside a traveler in cultural attire, questioned a teen unnecessarily. Then his eyes locked on Octavia. A tall black woman in a polished outfit? That was all the trigger he needed. She seemed composed, self-possessed, traits he found threatening. No crumpled boarding pass. Just a small bag. Suspicion sparked. He watched her approach ID check, unaware she'd already passed digital verification and been directed to TSA pre-check. Everything was smooth until Bradley intervened. "Ma'am, I need to see your boarding pass again." Octavia paused, puzzled. She had just shown it moments ago. Still, she complied, calmly producing her phone. It displayed her digital pass clearly. He scrutinized it, squinting as if searching for an issue. She was scheduled for Delta Flight 482 to Los Angeles. No red flags. Still, her serene confidence agitated him. "Is this your phone or someone else's?" he asked. Octavia blinked, measured. "Mine," she answered evenly. "Is there an issue, officer?" Without explanation, he returned her phone with unnecessary force. "We'll see about that. Please step aside for additional checks." He waved her off toward secondary screening. Octavia, still unaware of the storm brewing, complied. But her calm was giving way to disbelief, thudded with annoyance. She had done nothing wrong, carried no contraband, and had a legitimate pre-check pass. Still, she didn't want a confrontation, so she wordlessly followed his directee. What began as an insult turned into a reckoning. A woman they tried to humiliate was about to flip the script, with receipts no one saw coming. Just steps away, Officer Jasmine Perez cast a wary glance at Bradley. She double-checked Octavia's boarding info and found zero cause for concern. Everything aligned. The flight matched the manifest. Her ID synced.